Okay, the time is 6:32, and I'll call this work session of the Mayor and Council to order. We'll go over the regular agenda first. Tonight, giving the invocation is Pastor Nicholas Murray, and that is Mayor Pro Tem Sabah's pastor. You all got a copy of the announcements. I do have a couple of more announcements to add to that. February 7th at 4:30 is the ribbon cutting for the Cambridge McGee intersection. The CID is hosting that. We are all invited. The Gwinnett Transportation will be sending out invitations, but if you want to go ahead and mark your calendar for that, it's February 7th at 4:30. We did receive a letter, I guess last week. We had previously submitted the Code of Ethics that was never codified, that was codified, I guess, in July, to GMA to see if we could get recertified to be a city of ethics. They did send us a letter back, and this weekend we were announced that we were recertified. However, in the letter, they did point out some flaws in our ethics ordinance, specifically that we need to look at people's due process rights and the investigation process. So I'll bring that to everyone's attention. I think everyone was copied on the email from Miss, is it Hetherington? About the Boy Scouts doing the pledge to a flag. Did everybody receive that email? No? Yes? No? Yes. She volunteered her services to line up Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts to give the pledge for every council meeting. So what we've arranged for her to do is sometimes we have Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts that contact the city, or we have special guests that contact the city. So what we've asked her to do is the Tuesday before every council meeting, which is the Tuesday we have our agenda items in, is either call myself or Karen, email us, and see if anybody special is on the agenda, and if not, then she's going to set the Boy Scouts for the following Monday, or Girl Scouts. And we also talked about, this is news to Mr. Treadway, possibly adding a link to the city website where people could contact us if they would be interested in having their troop do the pledge. If we could work that out. Also, one last thing, it's not on the agenda. I asked Melissa to give y'all all a copy of this transportation information. It was presented to us today at the Metro Mayor's Caucus, and Mr. Hooker, right? Hooker, ARC director. Mr. Hoker, for lack of a better, was there today, and he offered to come and do town hall meetings with our constituents to educate them on the upcoming referendum that will be held in July. I personally think that would be a good idea if you guys want to look through this. I know it will be on some upcoming work session agendas. Mr. Davis is working on putting together our 15% local money. But I think maybe in March or April that will be a good idea for us to invite ARC to come and put together an educational meeting, unless anybody has any objections to that. Okay. Anybody else have any other announcements that aren't on the agenda?
Can we get a copy of the letter that came from the letter you just mentioned that you got some correspondence?
Yeah, I meant to bring it with me today. It was with my registration stuff for the Mayor's Day Conference, and I don't know where I placed it, so I'll find that.
The thing from the GMA?
I got it at the Mayor's Day Conference, so I'll have to relocate it. All right, moving on. I know there were some corrections to the minutes from the last agenda. Is any other, to your satisfaction, are there any other corrections to the current minutes? We have no invited guests tonight. We'll have a Board of Appeals report from Ms. Ferris. Mr. Treadway will give us a mid-year financial report. Do you want to talk about that now?
Unless you have any questions.
It's my understanding on the consent agenda that that's not ready to go forward tonight. Is that right?
That's correct. What we are going to do is the ordinance that we have to draft, we can't draft it specifically to one person. It has to be drafted. We're going to add it as an ethics ordinance that was passed in February. And what that's going to do is that's going to, I believe, take care of the ethics issues regarding what you talked about, due process rights. So we're gonna have the ordinance prepared. We have a draft of it right now. It's about 18 pages. And it's gonna set out a procedural guideline for any ethics investigations. We're gonna cut that down, narrow it out, and probably have it ready to send out either end of this week or probably over the weekend. The ordinance as it stands, if we just send an ordinance for one particular individual, that's gonna go in Unicode. It's gonna be worthless. So we've got to draft it up, and we have drafted it up. The ethics ordinance is gonna be attached to the February ethics issue that was passed. We've got a draft of it. Like I say, it's pretty thorough, but we've got to narrow it down a little bit. And then what'll happen is, as far as that goes, once that ordinance is adopted as part of the ethics guidelines, then at that point, council can do a resolution authorizing the investigation to take place. And that the ordinance will go ahead and be active at that point. And that can be done, we can set the resolution up to be drafted, prepared, and voted upon probably next meeting. But prior to that time, the ordinance will be in everybody's possession to look at.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Overman? It's my understanding that we'll need to either remove this from the agenda or make a motion to postpone, and so we can't do that if it's on the consent agenda, so I'll need a motion from someone to amend the agenda, taking this off of the consent agenda. Does that make sense to everyone?
And we're gonna postpone it to a certain date,
That's up to y'all.
The
based on what you just said.
Yeah, what-
would be,
the next agenda, an ordinance to be prepared to be supplemented to the February ethics guidelines that were set forth. At that point, we could also vote on the ordinance, the council can vote on the ordinance and also resolution going forward on that.
Well, my only concern about that is that, we went through this ordinance last year, and 19 pages is twice the length of the Constitution of the United States. So, I'm very leery. I'm not gonna pass an ordinance that I don't feel I'm comfortable with just to get something done.
Well, the
19
ordinance-
pages is quite an ethics.
It is, and that's why it's gonna be cut down a little bit. By that time, I'm sure that there'll be some comments on the ordinance overall, which will cover any kind of due process rights that any council member would have to invoke.
Well, that's why I would like to see that letter. I mean, if they're saying we're certified except for this one due process thing, then all we need to do is supplement our ordinance with the.
No, we're certified, they just said that in the future, we may want to address these issues.
Okay.
It hasn't, I mean, they didn't condition our certification, if I said that, I
No, you
misspoke.
didn't say it. But I'm just saying, but if that's, we need to codify just that due process part, but I don't think we have to rewrite everything. All we need to do is just add whatever verbiage we need to our existing ordinance to get the due process back.
Well, what we're gonna do is for section 3.16 under the charter, we have no guidelines for investigations. So we can't make an ordinance just for investigation of a particular council member. We have to make an ordinance that pertains to, we've got to attach it to something.
Can I jump in for just a minute? Can we do this to simplify things? Councilman Howard, it's your item. If we're not ready to go tonight, will you withdraw your sponsorship of this tonight so we can remove it from tonight's agenda? And can we place it on a work session so we can further discuss the ordinance? I think we just received it tonight, we can look at it and we can put it on a work session, and then if we need to go forward from there, but I think it's something we all need to hash out in a work session, because this was something we discussed for months last time around. Is
well,
that
and
agreeable?
of course, y'all were here during that process. I mean, I'm fine with that.
Is that agreeable to everybody?
The only question I have is, I assume other cities have investigation guidelines, we don't have to reinvent the wheel?
Well, last time around, I went through almost every city that was a certified city of ethics and looked at their ordinances to see. The problem is how you come up with that investigatory board. Most cities have an independent board of citizens, but the issue comes, how do you choose those citizens? Does every council member get a say? And does every citizen serve on everything? I mean, each city has kind of different, it's randomly picked. There was the issue of whether it should be the city judge, but then that comes into the JQC, the Judicial Qualifications Committee, there's a conflict there. So there's a lot of, and that's why we never went forward with it before. There's a lot of questions as to, you know, it's great in theory to form this board, but in actuality, how is this board formed is the
You don't
problem.
need a board to have an investigation.
Well, who's gonna lead the investigation if you don't have the board?
Should be able to pick somebody who's, or a group of people who are non-biased, or,
Well, that's a board though.
you know, the judge does not the city judge. There's gotta be,
Right, but, I mean, and I use the term board, but there has to be somebody appointed to do the investigation, whether it's one person,
and this is
three
gonna be
people.
on an individual investigation basis, not a sitting board.
Well, and that was the issue we had before, is it gonna be randomly, whenever we have an investigation come up, do we select a board, do we have a sitting board, do we have a panel of people? You know, cities do all different options, and so that
I
was
think
what.
we need to come to some agreement on what we're gonna do before we spend money on an attorney to draft something that's not gonna be accepted.
Well,
Well, and that's what I was alluding to at the last work session, is that, when Connor was here, that we needed to give them some direction as to how we wanted the policy to be drafted, before we went forward with actually drafting the ordinance. So, I don't know, if you guys wanna have that discussion tonight, we can. If you wanna review what Mr. Oberman's put together and take it from there, it's up to you.
I think we need to review what's put together so far.
So is everybody okay taking this off tonight's agenda then? Okay, moving on to the public hearing then. Consideration and action on the solid waste ordinance amendments. Mr. Treadway.
That's on the agenda. It was carried over from previous meetings.
We're gonna carry it over again.
Well, if, rather than carry it over, can I suggest this, because it's been so long between first and second reading, can I suggest just pulling it?
That's
And when
fine.
we're ready to come back again, start it all over
Because
then?
I've started going through it and I haven't finished it.
Yeah.
Let's do it right the first time we do it.
Yeah, so let's just introduce it beginning over
So
again.
can I have a motion? I believe if we table it, we don't have to put it back on a date. It can be tabled indefinitely. So can we have a motion then just to table it? And if you wanna bring it back, we can put it on for first reading.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Well, we'll have to do it in the actual meeting.
Oh,
That's
okay,
what
all
we'll,
right.
is that right?
Postpone, I think, is the right.
I thought postpone, we had to give a date.
You don't have to give a date, you can postpone indefinitely.
You can, okay.
Table is to act upon it again during the same meeting.
Okay. All right,
Postpone the table.
item number B, second reading, consideration action of the text amendment to the Town Center Overlay District. Mr. Oberman or Mr. Treadway or Mr. Davis, who wants to take this?
How about Mr. Davis?
Y'all remember, this is where we proposed a text amendment for the town center ordinance that would remove separation from restaurants selling alcoholic beverages in schools and churches. There was a question about the legality of it. We looked into it some more, Mr. Oberlin looked into it, and we can do that. So that's been taken off the table in terms of an issue. So we're now asking for the final approval of that text amendment this evening.
John, you might want to explain, the vast majority of that ordinance is text that is the current ordinance. There's only been that small section
Right,
that's
there's
changed.
one paragraph, Article 4, the alcoholic beverage part of the ordinance is the only part we're changing.
Everything else is the current ordinance.
Everything else is current
The
ordinance.
problem I have with that is it says what we have now doesn't apply, but it doesn't say what does apply. Other cities have specific guidelines for the overlay district.
What we put in, are you,
The one I saw,
The
the
alcohol
markup I
language.
saw just said that the existing ordinance does not apply in the town overlay section, but it doesn't say what does apply.
And it's my understanding state law would apply, we're just not saying that in the ordinance.
Well, Lawrenceville has
correct.
very
Yeah.
specifics, Atlanta has very specific recommendations.
City and
so
county
it's-
regulations override the state regulations on that.
the city, the state leaves it up to the cities. If the cities don't have the regulations, then that's fine, as long as it does not conflict with the code. And it does not. So the states have, the city has the authority to take out 6.5 A through E as far as restrictions go in the town center overlay district.
So that means you could put a place that serves alcohol adjacent to a church.
Yes, sir.
Correct. In the town center ordinance.
Yes, sir.
Well, no, let's clarify that a minute. A place that serves alcohol, period, does not, in my opinion, does not apply here. I think it has to have that addendum. I think you clarified it to me today, John, was that it must also serve food.
Establishments.
It's an establishment.
So we're talking about a package store.
No,
No.
We're talking about a
we're talking about restaurant that has a bar or a
Right.
bar.
Okay, so that, in this scenario here, we're saying that it's okay for that type of establishment to have zero allowance feet-wise
Correct.
between it and the property of a church or worship or a school or something of that nature.
Correct. Within the town center district.
However, a package store does not.
Correct.
Because
The distance still
Well, not
remains.
packaged.
package stores don't serve, they sell it.
They sell, they don't
Right.
serve.
I understand. So that distance still remains 300 feet.
The state is very clear on package stores, where it can and can't go, very clear, very clear. But they will allow the city to deviate as far as any restaurants serving those kind of things.
Is that distance 300 feet door to door, or is that distance 300 feet as the crow flies?
Door to door,
State, talking about state.
door to door, correct. Correct. They're very heavily regulated on package stores. But under the Attorney General's opinion, they will let the cities regulate what they can do as far as establishments go.
I have no further questions.
I have, my issue's not with the alcohol, I have an issue with the height requirement. In the town center overlay, we can have 5-story buildings, so this is extending to the whole area, then we would be allowed to have 5-story buildings.
Everything in the town center, yes.
But this is extending the boundaries of the town center.
This one is not extending the boundaries. This is just the alcohol ordinance part.
It's connected, it's all the same. We're not voting just on the alcohol ordinance.
Well, I will cheerfully take the entire thing then. If we extend the town center ordinance, everything that's in the town center ordinance that's already been adopted applies everywhere the town center ordinance goes.
And so you have that, because I didn't see, maybe it's in here, do you have the map of where we're extending the boundaries to?
No, but I can get you one.
Get one before we start the meeting today?
Sure.
Does anybody have any other questions?
Was the 5-story already a part of?
It was
Yes.
limited to the town center overlay, but now we're extending the boundaries of the town center overlay, so you could have 5 stories
Oh, okay.
anywhere.
But it's already there in the town center?
It's already there.
Okay.
It's been there. That came with the original town
Okay.
center ordinance.
Any other questions? Okay, moving on to item number C, consideration application and action on application by John W. Schmitz. Mr. Davis?
Yes. This is an application for a conditional use permit for an auto parts store to go in the old paint store up on Oak Road. They have agreed to all of our recommendations and our requirements. They're changing out the signage to meet new signage ordinances. They're changing the exterior lighting. They've already remarked and resurfaced their parking lot to meet the parking codes for that area. Once they move, this tenant starts his renovations, if there are any exterior dumpster spaces, they're gonna block those off and screen them out for us. Clients, or the owner has actually gone up there and done some landscaping already. So I think we're very good to go on this. They agree to all our conditions.
Just do it.
Well, listen.
Other questions for Mr. Davis? None? Number D, amendment of chapter 18, the building regulations. Mr. Davis, you're popular tonight.
Up to this point, yes.
This is where it changes.
Actually, no, I don't think it would. I would hope it wouldn't. The revision in chapter 18 was to codify the administration of the building codes in the city, to set it up the way we actually do process building codes, how it relates to our workflow, and what we can do in terms of administrative code. It's essentially adding a first section to the building code that we had that was not quite there. This just sets up our processes and our administrative, and it adopts, it actually says the very same thing our old building code said with these additional items for consideration.
Is this, are we basically in line with other cities in the area by adopting this?
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions for Mr. Davis? New business nomination of Gina Foster to post 4. I'll be withdrawing Ms. Foster's nomination and will not be making the nomination to the Board of Appeals tonight. Instead of going through each one, does anybody have any questions about the nominations I set forth out in the agenda?
Mayor, Stats nomination, can you?
Those were postponed until I believe the February 13th meeting. Mhm. I'll go down to nomination of municipal court judges. Does anybody have any questions over those?
Yeah, I'd like to see that, or ask that we amend that agenda item to strictly work with, the appointment of the third judge. The first two, are seated, they sit at the will of the mayor and council, so there's really no need to reappoint them. Yeah, so I'm just gonna make a motion to begin a meeting.
Okay. Anything else? Consideration action on selection of parliamentarian, Mr. Councilman Witz.
I'm gonna ask that we postpone that. We have, sent out some feelers. We have, if anyone in council knows someone that they'd like to be considered, we've got, 2 people that are, we don't have the resumes or the curriculum I tried to bring to you tonight, so, we'll have them for you as soon as we get them, so that you'll have them at least a week before the next meeting.
Councilman Woods, are you asking that we provide you names? Is there a process, is it an application with the?
I'm asking for clear like that, just to show that they, you know, with a resume. You know, there's not an application, there is a resume.
Something like that, similar to what we've done with the board's applications, experience, or just simply name and address, or
That'll be on a resume.
just a
Yeah.
good old resume?
Are
I mean,
they
if there's an
asking,
application, I can certainly get an application after filled out, you know, it's not a problem.
are
I
they
think that-
asking for compensation?
Pardon me?
Are they asking
We
for
haven't got to that
compensation?
point yet.
Anything else? L, consideration action to allow council comment on city attorney engagement letter, Councilman Howard.
Nothing different there, I'm just gonna make a motion for everybody that wants to comment.
Do you, because you have consideration and action, so you don't really need to make a motion to comment. I mean, we can if you want to, but the reason.
Well, I
the
just don't
language
want, I don't want people to take that up in their council comments, I guess. So I just wanna, all of us at one time to be able to do that. And if I
Right, but I'm
didn't,
saying that you have it as consideration, so you can, that means, usually means discussion. If you wanna just comment without taking an actual motion, if you wanna take a motion, that's fine too.
whatever we gotta do to make it happen, I just want all the council to have the opportunity to talk about it.
Okay. Item M, consideration action on election of mayor pro tem. I believe council, or Mayor Pro Tem Sabah is going to tender his resignation tonight, so we'll take that up when we get to, item number M. Moving on to the work session. Correspondence, I'm sure everybody's in correspondence. I'm gonna have this a minute before I forget. I did get this. Did we, Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, thank you for reminding me. We will need to go into executive session tonight for pending litigation, and we have Randy Meacham with, Gwinnett Municipal Association that will be joining us around 8:30 tonight, so that he can,
Council meeting.
I mean, after the council meeting, so that we can discuss, pending litigation matters with the county. Okay? We don't talk about that.
Yeah, that's sent a memo on everybody on that.
Okay. No other correspondence? Mr. Overman, any city attorney's report?
No, everything's quiet.
Moving on to discussion items, personal care homes ordinance. Mr. Davis?
Stars now.
We have a text amendment coming up. It's at the planning commission. They'll go over it on the 31st. So the public hearing will be at planning for changing some of our ordinance language on personal care homes. Basically, what we're going to do is bring our definitions in line with the state definitions, and we're going to bring our minimum lot sizes for personal care homes in line with what the county requires. It's essentially bringing our ordinance up to match everybody else's ordinance. Questions?
This is no different than went through the planning commission last time?
Just same thing.
And this is gonna be on our next agenda?
For first reading, yes.
First reading.
Okay, first reading. Okay. Any other questions?
Do you have any comments from the outer world?
Anywhere?
Comments from the outer world?
No, not since we had our planning commission meeting. The big concern at the planning commission meeting would be what would happen to people who are already here. Basically, their homes are going to be grandfathered. Any new people who came in would have to meet the new code. If people had started processes of complying prior to the date of the moratorium that we put out,
Okay.
then they would also be considered allowed to continue under the old rules if they had documentation that they'd been doing.
Yeah, they had to file, not.
Yeah, they had to file and that kind of stuff.
All right. Mr. Davis, one question on grandfather. Is that a transferable?
No.
Okay, so if the
No.
business sells,
If the business was to sell, the new owner would have to bring it up to the new code.
okay.
If the building shuts
Okay, so there's
down,
not a transferability or anything?
no, that goes with who has it.
Okay,
It's like a grandfathered zoning.
okay.
It's there for you as the user. If the user changes,
Okay.
you go to current code.
Grandfather goes with
Grandfather.
Yes, sir.
Any other
That's
questions?
a better word.
Stay standing.
Yeah, I'm not going anywhere.
Forest Hill Baptist Church.
Forest Hills Baptist Church is
That's not purchase, sir.
at Mountain View
That's not transferable either.
off of Oak. It's an existing Baptist church, and Forest Hills Mountain View is going together to look at an upgrade and adding some buildings and adding some site development for ball fields and such. They provided us, this is going to planning commission this week, with a master plan for their projections over the next 5 or 10 years. And it's one of the most complete CUP things I've ever seen. It's an existing church, they're adding to it. And they have 2 buildings. One, they want to start right away. One is future out, and then some ball fields and additional parking. But it's pretty straightforward. An existing facility that's being expanded, and it's on a fairly large lot, so I don't think it's
That goes to planning commission
Tuesday,
Tuesday?
next Tuesday.
And this is Mountain View, right?
It's Forest Hills Baptist Church at Mountain
Down
View.
in Mountain.
Yes.
And it's that way on Mountain View, right?
It's that way, yes.
Any other questions? City attorney bill. I actually put it on there, but I guess it's fine, huh? I know there were some issues, Councilman Manuel, I know you sent out that preliminary email, you said you were gonna update, I haven't seen anything updated.
Yeah, I'm still working on it. There's a lot there.
You know, I still stand that, you know, it's going on 3 months now, we haven't paid our city attorney, we're asking him to do work, especially with drafting ordinances, planning's asking him to review things, economic development's asking him to do things, so it's not just mayor and council work that he's doing, and so I still believe that the city needs to compensate him for his services, so take it as you may.
I told you what I thought you needed to do.
Executive sessions. Councilman Howard.
Executive sessions have gotten us in a little bit of a hot water the last 2 meetings. And I guess I would just ask my fellow council members to, let's consider not going into executive session if it's gonna mean we're gonna not be out of here by 7:25 in order to meet our 7:30 obligation to be in council chambers at 7:30. I just think that that's we've done it twice, and I understand it's a part of what we need to do, but quite frankly, executive sessions are something that we, I guess, have to, I hate to look at it as a penalty, but I think that's just a part of what we have to do, and I think we have to do it after the council meeting, after our citizens have already been to their council meeting. It's just the right thing to do. So I guess I would just encourage everyone, and Mr. Treadwell, you may know the answer to this, if we start one, can we go into recess and then go, so we could, I'm not saying if we finish at 7 o'clock and we couldn't start, I'm not suggesting that. I'm suggesting that if we have mechanisms to make sure we're out of this room at 7:25 and we're in our seats over there at 7:30, that we won't have any disappointed citizens when it comes to starting our meetings on time, because we've done it 2 in a row. And it's, I just think it's a black eye we can avoid, and I think we can all in this room avoid it. That's really the only thing I wanted to say about it. And I would not be in favor of even starting one if it was going to go beyond 7:25 unless we have accommodations for stopping it and restarting it. So, not too soon.
Any other comments? Item number E, video work session, Councilman Howard.
Since we're now videotaping this meeting, I think it's appropriate for it to appear on our city website alongside our other videotape council meetings. Anybody have any heartburn about that?
Could I make a suggestion about work sessions? They have become a lot more popular of late, and we seem to be crowding an awful lot of people into this room. I would ask you to consider maybe to conduct our work sessions in chambers. We've got the video equipment there that can do a better job of videoing than single camera sitting in the corner. And B, it would be a lot more comfortable for all the folks that have taken the time to come to your meeting. So that might help kill more than one proverbial bird there. So, but just a suggestion. I know there are advantages to sitting around a table, and I recognize that, but I also understand, or recognize, the convenience and efficiency of, conducting the meeting in council chambers.
Well, it's a good point. I think we pick up some efficiencies from that transfer time. We're already in there. So I think there's, from an efficiency standpoint, it certainly has a lot of pluses, and I'd be for that.
We have to advertise the location of our work session, so does anybody have an objection for the next work session being advertised as being into the council chambers? All right.
Why don't we ask the folks crowded around the walls?
Chairs are more comfortable in there.
These are very hard.
Item number F, city attorney work authorization, Councilman Woods.
Yeah, this is basically, I'd like to see us go back to what we had previously. The new members aren't aware, but usually what we did is we had something we were gonna spend attorney's monies on. We'd get the consent of the majority of council, make sure no one had any real heartburn about it before we made the expenditure. I think you remember we did that.
And I agree with you, because we can all run up Mr. Oberman's legal fees if we don't. The only thing, and I think this was an issue we discussed with Mr. Powell, that can become our policy, but just like with the agenda where we try to go through the work session, anybody can ask for anything to be on the agenda, unfortunately, even if we don't go through work session first or agenda setting meeting. And so our charter says that ordinances and things like that are to pass through the city attorney, so we would encourage everyone to follow that policy, but we can't, just like we can't prevent somebody from putting something on the agenda, we can't really prevent them if they don't. Does everybody
I
agree
think,
on that?
well, yeah, and I agree with that, just thinking as a courtesy, we didn't know where the money's being spent.
And it's
So,
just another facet of communication,
Right.
that's all.
Well, and I think that works well though too, if we do follow the process, if you want to have something, if you would put it on a work session first, and then that way, if it goes on the work session, we can direct
Exactly.
Mr. Overman or the city attorney. And I think, can you just email that policy out to everybody? I think
Yes.
everybody got that email last
Procedures
week.
for resolutions, contracts, and other matters, is this the one you're talking about?
Is
That
that-
you sent out? Yeah, that was good, that's good.
LCI update, I should probably call it, do you want it now, or are we going to an exec session later, or?
It will be, we do have an item for executive session, but I did want to announce that we closed another parcel this past week. The counter offers that were approved at the last meeting have been presented. One of those is in the process of final approval by GDOT, and they'll be set up for closing after we get their approval. And we met last week with a property manager, one of the owner's relatives, and their consultants to discuss construction issues on a particular parcel. And we feel like this is going to help expedite the response from the counter offer from the other. And we've got the one counter offer tonight for the executive session.
Any questions of Mr. Buckle? Okay. It's 7:09, we'll adjourn the work session and go into our agenda setting meeting. Yeah, I don't have that. We have Forest Hill Baptist Church, we have the stat appointments, and we have the group homes ordinance, is that right? Is there
Yes.
anything else?
I do need to add 2 items, one to the February 13 work session, and that's discussion on an automated license plate reader for the police department, to purchase that. And also, we will need first reading on an ordinance. We have an old city defined benefit pension plan, that was through the Georgia Municipal Association, no longer in effect, although we do have some retired employees who are still eligible to draw from that. These are just simply some procedural things that we need to do to keep that current and up to date based upon GMA and their auditor and what's the word I'm thinking of? Fancy insurance folks. Actuaries, thank you. The actuaries have. And, it's merely routine, doesn't cost the city anything, and there's no impact on the city from a financial point of view.
I was looking at that, I believe it was for the audit, and that's what about that, we're paying $8,000 a year to administer it.
Mhm.
Is there a way that we can, I mean, isn't there a way we can get around that $8,000 a year? Because there's not that many people on it.
I mean, I guess we could approach them and see, that's.
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
been the charge.
8,000 is a lot of money. For, I think that we have 7 or 8 people, I don't even think there's that many.
Okay, we'll check with them on that. But I do need to add that as a first reading item on the regular session on the 13th.
I had to be in Atlanta today, so I had taken the state of the city off tonight's agenda, but that will go on the 13th. Also, there's some Girl Scouts that asked to come and give a presentation about a project they had done. Don't know, that will either be on the 13th or the first meeting in March. And the soccer teams, we recognize the little ones, and now I think the 13 and 14-year-olds won theirs, and they've asked to come in and be recognized, so they will either be on the 13th or the 27th, but I'll let you know for a proclamation. Anybody have anything else that needs to go on the regular session or the work session agenda?
I'd like to, just a discussion of the work session about the Vietnam Veterans Memorial.
Mayor, can we figure out where we can put the mediator on some agenda so we can at least discuss that beforehand, because I think it's a crucial event that we can all benefit from, as I've sat through many of those in the past, and I think they're extremely beneficial and helpful. It just brings up a new light, a new perspective, a new angle that we have not seen before, especially if it comes in from professionals who've been doing this for a while.
So you want that as a discussion item
In
on
the
the
work
work session?
session.
You
gonna put that on the
13th? Mr. Treadwell?
Yeah,
Is that
Yeah, the 13th is, yeah, please, that would be fantastic, we can do that, at least we can discuss it and see which way we're going with that one. And I was hoping that we may even get some third-party individual that we can allow them to kind of guide our discussion in nominating and appointing a mediator.
Also, I'll put Eric on the spot. We had our ad hoc economic development met last week, and one of the things we had talked about is the numbers, trying to compare between the city and the county. I think that's something we could present to council at the work session on the 27th. That would be after the next.
We always sound like there's collecting the data, but we can certainly implement it
Tentatively put that on there.
for the 27th.
Anything else? This won't need to go on a work session, but our map, have y'all all seen our city map where they sell ads on it? They do that every 5 years. They just received a letter that they're gonna be renewing it. It's free, it's no cost to the city. They're gonna publish, I think, 25,000 of them for free, so I will let y'all know when we get that as well.
That's driven by the ad sales, right?
Yeah, so that's why they do it for free. Nothing's really free. Anything else? Okay. We stand adjourned work session at, the agenda setting session at 7:14. Stand adjourned until 7:30.